Fasten your seatbelts for the realest Eagles and Sixers YouTuber! One who plays no clickbait and gets to the point! The myth, the legend, Nicky Steves! On the My Channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. I'm simply statue think they slate, dropping unrealistic mags. 2K takes for the click. Even though cats like that get views closer to the milli, never hear me preach, flip on to Philly. Before you watch the Eagles all the way through the early 22, authentic talk, forget what others do. Come to My Channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. The 24/7, 365 way. Sports content for the reals to fill the day. It is Tuesday evening. It is 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we back from the bye week, which means you know what time it is. Time for the second live stream of Tuesday. We're going to recap the Eagles game this time around. We're going to recap the Eagles Week 6 game against the Cleveland Browns. My channel and the Hardcore Sports Network. As always, the links to both channels are in the description box. If you haven't done so, like and subscribe to those yet. Now let's dive into it. Let's talk about the game. The Eagles escaped the Week 6 struggles versus the Browns with a 20-16 win. And despite the fact that we won the game, we had no offensive turnovers. It wasn't pretty, considering we were playing a Cleveland Browns team who got blown out by the Dallas Cowboys, who are underachieving this year, got blown out by the Washington Commanders. All things considering, it's not a pretty win for us. But it is a win. It is 3-2. And at least keep Nick Sirianni safe for now. But that's a whole nother subject. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more as we go along. The Eagles won, and the Browns did cover them minus 9.5 point spread, being that it was a 4-point game, which isn't really that much of a shocker. So if you bet on the Browns plus the 9.5, you still would have won money out of it because they covered the spread. But that's for sports betting. That's a whole nother subject in itself. But congrats to the Eagles. They did get their victory. So we'd rather win than lose. So I got to at least come on here and say something positive about the win. At least acknowledge we got the dub. We didn't have any turnovers. A.J. Brown had himself a nice game. He had 116 receiving yards, and he had an awesome catch at the end of the game that helped put the game away. A risky throw in coverage. But when you got a receiver like A.J. Brown who can make great catches, you can take that chance. Late in the game, you're winning and even though there's a risk of being intercepted, that's a risk you can take when you have A.J. Brown as a receiver. Something that Jalen Hurts wouldn't have done without him. Because if you would have had that, you would have had even Smitty, who is a nice weapon, but he's not the same caliber as A.J. Brown, or you try to throw to Jahan Dotson that same route, that wasn't going to work out as expected. That would have been an interception 9 times out of 10. Like the Week 2 interception late in the game or the interception against the Seahawks last year. But with A.J. Brown, you can afford to make that throw, and he made the game-sealing catch to help us milk the clock. But that's great right there. Nice there by A.J. Brown. He also had a touchdown pick. That's all right. That's you can see. That's the thumbnail and the background picture. But hey, well, that's nice. At least we got A.J. Brown back. He had a solid game. It's good. He's been he's a little bit rusty. He hasn't played in minutes, so it's good that he got himself back to rhythm. So that's a good thing right there. And we also had no turnovers, which is good. Jalen Hurts, he didn't throw any interceptions. He didn't make any costly coughing it up fumbles. He had an incredible catch and a TD. It's 6 receptions. I mean, it's only 6 receptions, but it is his first game back. And he did have 2 big catches, one for a touchdown and the game sealing one. So that the 6 receptions aren't the greatest stat line in the world, but that doesn't matter. You made a few key catches that helped the team win the game. That's good. And to be fair, it is his first game back in a little over a month. So it makes sense. He's going to be a little bit rusty, but he didn't look rusty for the receptions he made. And then you did have, like I said, Devontae Smith, got to give him props too. He wasn't used much, but he did catch the go-ahead touchdown that helped us officially take the lead. Because we had multiple points in this game where we were tied. And then when we were 13-13, Smitty made that go-ahead reception on that big touchdown on that drag route to give us the lead. And we kept the lead throughout. We did give up a field goal, but we kept the lead once we got that toe-ahead 20-13 touchdown, and we ended up winning 20-16. So we got to give Smitty credit for that one catch. That was the most significant thing he did all game, but hey, it's a big catch that helped us get the lead and hold it the rest of the game. That counts. Now, Saquon, he wasn't the strongest. This wasn't his strongest game, as you could see. 18 carries for only 64 yards. But you know what? I'm not going to say anything bad. I can forgive him. Not every single game Saquon plays in, it's going to be great. They did give him 18 carries. It just wasn't his best game. It happens. It happens with all running backs. Not every single game is going to be a great game. Some fans will argue they could have given him a few more carries, and that might be true. Maybe if they gave him a few more carries, one of those would have been a big carry. That's certainly possible, but it is what it is. It's not not his greatest game in the world, but hey, he didn't make any costly fumbles. He didn't have any critical plays where he failed to convert on 4th and goal with the game on the line. They didn't have anything like that, so I'm not mad at it. It's just one game. Not the greatest game, but he can always come back and have a good game against the Giants next week in his revenge game. There's always that possibility, so we'll let this one slide. And Jalen Hurts versus the Browns, he wasn't great, but he wasn't horrible. He didn't make any critical mistakes that caused any turnovers. And he was decent on the ground game, too. He helped make a few plays with his legs that pushed us rolling. He had 33 yards running, and he did throw 2 touchdowns and no picks. So it was a respectable game by Hurts. Not the greatest game in the world. Not Drew Brees versus the Giants in 2015. Not his performance in him and Jalen Hurts' performance in the Super Bowl. Not a Tom Brady game where he threw 4 or 5 TDs. It's still a nice performance, though. And once again, Daniel Berry Sports highlights one of the main supporters of the content creators who create content for the Hardcore Sports Network, stopping by as always. Always appreciate your support. As always, when I look at the main offensive starters, I didn't see any really bad games, even though Saquon wasn't his best, but it wasn't necessarily a bad game. So that's good. We at least got that right there. But unfortunately, the team struggled throughout this game. We didn't score any points in the first half. Early on in the game, there were times we were trying to force the pass, which is what ties into what I said, that maybe we should have tried giving the ball to Saquon just a few more times, because we look at that first quarter, we didn't score any points there. It took till the second quarter for us to finally get going, because we went up there, we went 1st and 10, Barkley 5 yards, then a couple passes. We could have tried running again, maybe to get a 3rd and short, but we didn't. We ended up going 3 and out. Then we shut down the Browns, but then we punted it away on a 7-yard drive. Then finally, it took till the second quarter for us to finally get down the field and get a field goal out of it. But that was not, so it was bit of an ugly start. It took a minute for us to finally get going and score some points. It took till earlier the second quarter for us to finally get field goal. And then we got a touchdown out of it. We're up 10-0. Then it's like, all right, now we're rolling. We're up 10-0. Then we gave up a field goal. It's like, okay, it's just a field goal. That's fine. I can deal with that. But then we had that drive. We had that blocked field goal, which they returned to the house for a touchdown. All of a sudden, it's a 10-10 game. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? This is the Browns. We're really going to struggle against the Browns. So we had that first quarter, had some bad play calling there. And then we get to the first half. We get a punt early, 3 and out. Saquon, okay, he loses 3 yards. Myles Garrett gets him. Then Jalen Hurts, incomplete pass. We did have a complete pass to Barkley. But then what was it? Yeah, it was like, what was he? Yeah, we started off, Saquon lost yardage. Hurts threw an incomplete pass. Then he threw a completion on third down. I think he did, but it was stopped short. Then we had to punt the ball. It was like, yeah, at that point, I was not looking great. So it was still a struggle even in winning. And even some of the play calling, it's very reminiscent to what Sirianni was doing last year with Brian Johnson. You know, we got a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, who's got more experience play calling, but you look at a lot of the plays we're setting up, it's very reminiscent to what we were doing last year with Brian Johnson. So again, it looks like it's got Sirianni's fingerprints all over it. And to me, it sounds like Sirianni's telling the fans that Kellen Moore is calling the plays because that's what they want. But in reality, he's still the one calling the plays. That's what it comes across as to me. That Sirianni's really calling the shots, but he's trying to convince us that Kellen Moore is. And that's part of the problem there. And Sirianni, he screwed up as well with the arguing with fans on the sideline. He's sitting there arguing with fans, which is not a good idea at all. And remember, Jalen Carter was arguing with fans. What was it, the Saints game? And Sirianni pulled him aside and told him to cut it out. But now here he is doing the same thing. He's not exactly leading by example. It sounds like he's showing looks like he is showing an entitled streak by saying one thing to one player, but then literally doing the same thing. And that's not a good way to stay on your player's good side because it creates the impression in their mind, okay, this is an entitled coach who just thinks he can do whatever he wants to. They're obviously not going to say that out loud to the coach. Most of them won't because they know it could create drama with the coach and it could mess up their reps in the rotation. It could mess up their, like if it's a receiver, it could mess up their productivity in the offense. They might get less looks, less plays designed for them if they have an argument with the coach. If it's a defensive player, Sirianni might convince, what's his name, again, Vic Fangio to use them less and rotate them around less if they get in an argument with the coach. So some players aren't going to say that, but they're thinking in their mind if they hear their coach saying one thing and then the coach does the exact opposite. That doesn't create a trust dynamic between the player and the coach. And this will be noticeable over time. This happens in any walk of life. In a business, if you got a manager or a supervisor that plays that way, that does one thing, that wants you to do things one way and leads the opposite way, it creates a lack of trust between you and that superior. And even if you don't say anything to that person because you don't want smoke, in the back of your mind, you're thinking it to yourself. You're thinking, I don't trust this person. They're saying one thing, then they're doing the other. And that can lead to poor relationship with you and that boss. You might go to one of the other bosses in the future, or you might just decide to do something behind their back. And, you know, that can happen. It happens in the football world too, when players don't trust the coaches. But that's just a part of the story. The other thing is, here is Sirianni arguing with fans at home because he's not happy with what they're saying. And he's saying this at a moment where he's not looking that great. Even though the team won and they're 3-2, we still had 2 losses. That loss, particularly against the Bucs, was ugly in week 4. And here's Sirianni here. He's arguing with the fans like, who are you to? I mean, I understand he's getting criticism from the fans, but guess what? When you look at the way the team's playing, you deserve it. Maybe instead, Sirianni should be more worried about what he can do to fix the issues instead of trying to argue with fans because they said something to him. I mean, like, I get if we win the Super Bowl and you're saying something to everyone, then you guys doubted me. You thought I should be gone. We got a ring. You all love me now, don't you? Something like that makes sense if you just won a Super Bowl and proved all of the critics and your fan base wrong. That's one thing. At that point, you have every right to brag at that point. You have every right to tell the fans, you guys wanted me gone. I guess you love me now. But that's an entirely different scenario. And then after the game, he's talking about how they're humble and hungry. Well, for starters, the coach didn't appear too humble when he was arguing with fans. Now, did he? Seemed a little bit defensive, egotistical, if you will. The way we're seeing this offense run, it seems like it's more Nick Sirianni with his hands on the play call than Kellen Moore. Doesn't seem like he's humble about that. If it appears that he's the one really calling the shots now, does it? Not exactly a humble mentality from the head coach. Give me 1 second. I'm going to plug in my charger and turn on this light in just a second. And we going to, because it's starting to get a little dark outside early. It's mid-October. It gets darker earlier. There's less light in the room. But I'll keep talking to you guys as I'm doing that. Right. And then, so that's not exactly humility by Sirianni getting defensive, arguing with fans. And then then you get the hungry part. The Eagles, I mean, I'm sure this, and to some degree it's true. I'm sure some of the talent's hungry. They want to go out there and win. Certainly. There's certainly players on this roster that want to win games, get those big bucks, hoping to bring in a championship. So there's some truth to that hungry part, but the team as a whole, it doesn't look that way. I'm not saying whether the hungry's true or not, but I'm just saying when you perform in a nail biter against a struggling 1-4 Cleveland Browns team that's going back to being a dumpster fire, you're struggling to put them away in a game where all your fans are thinking to themselves, if we played any other team, we would have lost. You don't look hungry in that situation. I'm not saying whether they are or aren't, but I'm saying in this situation, the fans don't appear, the players don't appear to be hungry the way they're playing. So that comment doesn't go over well. Particularly the humble part when we just talked about the fact that Sirianni's arguing with fans over what they have to say. Well, at this moment, Sirianni, you haven't done anything to prove them wrong. So who are you to talk about the fans if you haven't proved them wrong? If you prove them wrong, like I said, okay, that's one thing. Feel free to brag all you want and say, you guys wanted me gone. I bet you love me now. That's one thing. You've earned that right to brag. But as of this moment, Nick Sirianni has not done that. He hasn't done anything to truly earn the right to brag, even with that Super Bowl appearance. Because what have we done since? We had a hot start last year and had an epic collapse late. Easily the worst collapse by a team to make the playoffs, or easily the worst late season collapse by a team to make the playoffs in recent NFL history, and the worst that I can think of. And now we're starting off this season looking mediocre so far. The way things are panning out, we're in for an 8-9 win season right now. The way things look. We had $1 million talent, but 10-cent coaching on this team. That's really what the Eagles are, the way things are going. So even despite the fact we won this game, the coaching doesn't look good. The play calling, trying to be a little too heavy on the pass game. We tried to balance it out a little bit more in this one with the run game, but throughout the season, we've become a little bit too heavy on the pass. We tried passing in second and middle yard situations like that second offensive play when we probably should have ran again. So we have been, even in this game, we were a little bit too reliant on the pass game at times. Throughout the game as a whole, we did a better job balancing out the play calling, but there were points where we were passing. We probably should have ran the ball. So we still see moments where Sirianni, he's still calling play. It still seems like he's calling the game because we have a different offensive coordinator, yet we're seeing a lot of the same strategy implemented. And shout out to I Am Carlo, Eagles fan, longtime YouTube content creator. He pointed this out. Kellen Moore, it looks like things are running a little bit smoother this year with Kellen Moore, but that's only because Moore has more experience than Brian Johnson. It's obvious when you put Brian Johnson, who's relatively inexperienced with a playbook, and he's just doing with somebody else who doesn't have a great setup, with playbooks is asking them to do, obviously they're going to struggle. And for someone like Kellen Moore, who has more experience with playbooks, he'll at least make something out of this, even if it's not the most efficient. So we still see that problem going on here. Even at this game, at moments, it seemed like Sirianni was getting in the way. Like that first drive, I mean, who knows what would have happened if we just ran the ball and had a 3rd and short. Not saying we would have scored on that drive, but you never know. We could have. And we could have scored more points and won this game more convincingly. Because this is a game we, on paper, should have at least got 30 points, but we didn't. And it does concern me going forward against tougher opposition. Now, this week you got the Giants coming up. That should be a win. That would put us up to 4-2, but what happens from there? Let's take a look at the Eagles' schedule the remainder of the way and see how things could play out. All right. You got the Giants. All right. Giants here. Yep. So Giants at 1. Week 7. Week 8, the Bengals. Week 9, Jaguars. So far, these all look like winnable games. Then week 10 against the Cowboys, it looks winnable, but knowing that the Eagles and Cowboys usually split and play close, there's no guarantee of that game. That could go either way. And you shorten schedule, you come in Thursday and play Washington. The way things are going now, that looks like a loss right now. And the Rams, as of now, it could be a win, but who knows? Maybe the Rams get healthier by that point and they start winning some games, kind of like they did last year where they got hot as the season went along. Maybe the Rams do the same again. It's not letting me scroll down. Okay, here we go. Ravens, that's looking like a loss. Panthers should be a win. Steelers, that might be a loss the way Steelers are, because the Steelers are still a solid team, and the Eagles, when they play up, aren't the best team. Commanders, that could be another loss. Cowboys could go either way. Giants, who knows? I look at the schedule. On one hand, these games look winnable, but considering the Falcons game was winnable and we blew it, I don't know about some of these games. Even the games against teams like the Bengals and the Cowboys that we could win, I don't know. It may not happen. It might be a tough uphill battle for this team. And then you got the Ravens. That's looking like a loss. But we look at the schedule. Some of these games could go either way. So even though we won this time, it wasn't a performance that inspired confidence going forward. Like I said, if you go against a better team, even the Bengals have at times played better than the Browns, so that could be a loss. That could be, even though it looks like a winnable game following the Giants, you never know with that Bengals game. That could be a tight battle we fall short in. The Ravens and Steelers, I'm not too confident about those ones. Cowboys, I'm kind of iffy right now. Giants, we should win, but who knows, especially with it being a divisional game. So even though we won here against the Browns, I wasn't happy with the way the team performed as a whole. It was too close. There were too many close calls. And just watching the game, I could never get comfortable with the Eagles being ahead, no matter what. No matter how much time was ahead, I was not comfortable with the Eagles closing this game at all. And I'm sure everyone watching felt the same way. It doesn't matter whether you were watching the whole game, whether you were multitasking between watching and cleaning, whether you was working on Sunday, trying to catch as much of the game as you can, whatever the case was, whether you watched the whole game, I don't think anyone was truly comfortable watching this game. So there is those concerns that the Eagles need to fix up. And we're still going to talk about Sirianni because even in victory, he found a way to disappoint. With the way it was close against the teams such as the Browns that we should have easily beat, the way he's talking to fans after the game, it's not a good look. And I think eventually over time, we're going to have to part ways with Sirianni. That day's going to come at some point. But I've ranted enough about Sirianni. But let's talk a little bit more about the defense. the defense actually managed to record 5 sacks against Deshaun Watson. All right. Even though it was a close game, I give him credit. We actually got to the quarterback. It was Deshaun Watson, but hey, we got 3+ sacks. In this case, 5. We did something right in this one. That's good. One positive right there. And then we go from there. We look at the two people that stood out the most to me on the secondary are Quinyon Mitchell. You got the 2 young guys, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Cooper DeJean has had himself a solid game in this one, his best game thus far. Now, it was against Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns, but hey, he at least had himself a solid game. This could be a confidence booster for him going forward. I mean, going against the Giants, who are stuck with Daniel Jones as their quarterback, and had a, let's just say, questionable play calling decision going for a field goal down by 10 late against the Bengals on Sunday night. So considering we're playing the Giants, I'm at least confident we can win this one because Brian Daboll's decision-making has been really questionable. Kicking a field goal down by 10 late in the 4th quarter when you needed a touchdown made no sense. The play calling, constantly calling screen passes on 3rd and longs. I mean, Brian Daboll's kind of in a similar slope to Sirianni where things were looking up after the 22 season, but now they're looking down for him. He's kind of in a similar slope to Sirianni with the Giants, but worse. Considering he's stuck with Daniel Jones and considering some of his decision-making makes us wonder why this guy even became a head coach. Wonder, how did this guy win head coach of the year his rookie year? How did this guy turn the Giants into a playoff team? Was it a fluke? Obviously, at this point, it was. I think he's caught everyone by surprise. Teams didn't really know his scheme. And like once they had one season of Brian Daboll, you kind of saw what he had. You saw what his strengths and weaknesses were as a coach, and teams picked up on that. And since then, the Giants have been back to. So at that point being, though, back to Cooper DeJean. He had a good performance against struggling Browns. Now you go against struggling Giants. That should be good. That should help out Cooper DeJean have another solid performance, build his confidence. And seeing what's going on with DeJean, especially Quinyon Mitchell, throughout the season, I feel like at some point, the Eagles got to make that transition to the young guys. You got 2 young guys in the secondary. Quinyon Mitchell you got in the 1st round, Cooper DeJean. It's kind of similar, reminds me to when you had Lito Shepherd and Sheldon Brown. You had those guys there, and you also had Troy Vincent, Bobby Taylor. The Eagles ultimately made the decision to get younger in the secondary, part ways with Troy Vincent and Bobby Taylor that offseason right before the Super Bowl run when we brought in T.O. That's the other big decision that they parted ways with the veteran secondary guys to go for the younger guys. I'm starting to think going forward long-term with what I'm seeing with this team. Shout out John Grega, longtime supporter of my football content, stopping by as always. And as always, I appreciate the support. Thanks for stopping by. Right now, we're talking about the Eagles secondary and what the long-term future should be. Seeing DeJean have a good game here and seeing Mitchell play solid throughout the season, I feel like they're in a similar position to what they were in 2004, where they chose to let the veterans, Vincent Taylor, walk and go with the younger guys, Lito Shepherd and Sheldon Brown. We're kind of in that similar predicament 2 decades later, where it might be time to part ways with Darius Slay and even possibly James Bradbury, and let's focus in. Make this the young guys' time in the secondary. Officially, let it known we're officially moving toward Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. We trust these guys going forward in the long term. And I feel like we're in that similar predicament now that we were in when we just made the decision to trust Lito and Sheldon as young guys. I feel like now we're in that same predicament where maybe it is time to move on from Darius Slay. Like, hey, thanks for your contributions. Thanks for helping us out in the early stages of the rebuild. Thanks for helping us that Super Bowl season, but it's time to move on. Because Slay's not getting any younger. I mean, it's nice that we had him for the time we had him. I mean, granted, he is on the roster, so we can certainly. I'm not saying we got to get rid of Darius Slay now, but I'm saying down the line, like this off season, maybe we consider moving on. Maybe we consider moving on from James Bradbury. We consider that as the season goes along, we give Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell more playing time as the season goes along, kind of like what we did in that 03-04 season, where we gave Lito and Sheldon more playing time. We kept Vincent and Taylor for the remainder of that season to be mentors to them. And then when it came time to move on from the veterans, we did move to the younger guys. We can do that here. We got to at least keep Darius for the remainder of this season, so he can at least be a mentor. He can provide his experience and knowledge of the game to the young guys in our secondary and help them going forward. And even Reed Blankenship. I wasn't a fan of his game at first, but he's at least proved to be a respectable option. And he's still a guy you can use for the foreseeable future as well. That's a few years younger. I think yeah, we can definitely do that. But I feel like eventually we got to part ways with Slay. We can at least keep him for now, let him mentor the guys for the future. And then when the time's right, maybe this offseason, maybe consider moving on from him. But that's a discussion for a whole nother time, though. I'm not going to get too into that. Just say this, though. I like what I see from Cooper DeJean in this game, and I like what I'm seeing from Quinyon Mitchell so far this season. So there was some good coming from the defense. And Zach Bond, he's having himself a solid season at linebacker. I like what we're seeing with him. Got some solid pieces on defense, but I'm not a fan of the way Vic Fangio leads defensively. We barely get any pressure on the quarterback. And the crazy part is this is coming from last season. Last season with Sean Desai and then eventually Matt Patricia, we saw the same issue. Lack of pressure. We're not really getting much pressure on the quarterbacks. And it's the same thing now. We're not really getting much pressure on the quarterbacks. So I feel like, again, even on the defensive side of the ball, it seems like a certain person's having too much control. Now, this game, we got 5 sacks, but how long did it take to get to that point? It took 5 games to finally get to that point. Here's the question. Are we going to do that again against the Giants next week? Is this something we're going to keep consistent with? Well, I'm glad we did it. We got 5 sacks. We finally got some pressure on the quarterback and dropped them. I'm glad we finally did it, but the question is, can we keep it consistent going forward? See, that's the question. And that's the thing I'm concerned with for the future. But overall, the defense, hey, we did have some solid moments, but the team as a whole, the downside was Watson actually looked like a decent quarterback in this game. Of course, it had to come against the Eagles defense. But here's the thing. At the same time, I'm kind of like, if we played the same game against a team with a better quarterback, would we have shut them down to only 9 points? Because remember, that blocked field goal was returned the other way. That doesn't count on the defense. The defense only gave up 9 points. That one touchdown had nothing to do with the defense. The defense stepped up when it needed to and held the Browns to only field goals. So shout out to them on that. But at times, Watson looked decent. Now, maybe this was just, I don't know, is it really on the defense or was it just Watson having a decent game? Maybe I'm being a little too hard on the defense for that one. But to be fair, they did get 5 sacks. They held them to field goals. So I can forgive the yardage, even though it kind of feels like, of course, Watson had to have a halfway decent game against us. But at the same time, we held them to field goals. We got 5 sacks. That's at least good. So overall for this game, I'll recap it before I ramble on forever. With this game, I'll give this letter grade a C. Even though we won, it was a bit underwhelming. I feel like offensively, the play calling could have been a little bit better, and we could have scored more points. The blocked field goal was kind of just a bad luck play. I can forgive that. Like the play calling could have been a little bit better, and if it was, I think we could have scored more points. We could have got 23 or possibly 30. Maybe the play calling was a bit better. But you know what? I'll take the win. But I feel like it was a bit underwhelming. But to be fair, at the same time, we were coming off a bye week. We are just getting Lane Johnson, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith back in the lineup. But at the same time, we did lose Jordan Mailata in the game. We did. Darius Slay was out. Now, I'm going to check Jordan Mailata's status. Is he going to come back, though? Because he left the game on Sunday. But and as of now, is saying he's expected to be out a couple weeks with that hamstring injury. So that's a concern now. We get Lane Johnson back, but we lose Jordan Mailata, who's at this point the second notable piece behind Lane Johnson. Because it's mainly Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata as the top two guys. Cam Jurgens, he's starting to find his groove. Maybe by the end of the season, we'll fully trust him, but as of right now, Lane Johnson's the main guy and Jordan Mailata by default based on experience, with Jason Kelce not being there anymore. They're the main two guys. And we get one guy back only to lose another for a few weeks. So that's a bit of a concern. So it's just like, to me, it's a C-level performance for those reasons right there. It was a little bit closer than we should have. We lost Jordan Mailata, but we did ultimately win the game. We had a decent defensive day. We didn't have any turnovers, and we won the game. Those are pluses. So I'm kind of in the middle on this performance. But if you guys want, you can give me your letter grade on this performance in the chat on how you feel the Eagles did in their win. But yeah, I'll give you guys, if you want to comment, a few more seconds to do so. And there's not really much else to say about this game against the Browns, except we got it done. Now move on. Let's get ready for the Giants. Giants are 1-4. They're off an ugly loss to the Bengals. I don't trust Brian DeBall to lead that Giants team. So I'm confident that we can at least win this game. And I'll get into that more on Friday. You guys know Fridays are when I do my preview. So I'll do my Eagles Giants Week 7 preview on Friday. I'll create the stream after we go off this one, and we'll talk about that then. And speaking of football, while we're still on the subject, we're on the subject of live streams. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., and yep, John's giving them a B-. I give them a win as a win. And tomorrow, so thank you for leaving your thoughts. And tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Week 7, NFL Pick'ems on the Hardcore Sports Network. I'm going to be on it, and we'll be doing a roundtable discussion, giving our picks. I don't have the full lineup of who's going to be there, but once we do, I'll share it on Twitter, and you guys and I'll share the lineup with you guys there. But actually, I'm going to check Twitter right now to see, maybe did Mitch share it yet? All right, let's see. And man, it's crazy. I know this is all subject with sports, but I'm looking outside. I see it's getting dark now around 6:30 because it's almost black right now. It's not. It's starting to change colors. The sunset's starting to go. It's starting to turn black. But I mean, we know that's inevitably going to happen because it's the fall into the winter. But I'm starting to get used to it. Hey, what do you think of the Buffalo trade? Hold on, Buffalo trade. Let me look. What trade is it? Because I'm hearing about it. I heard about the trade earlier, of course, with Davante Adams. Oh, let me see. Oh, Amari Cooper. Let me see the details. Okay, here, a second. I'm going to share the screen with you guys right here because we're just getting the trade as this is coming through. I'm going to share my thoughts on it while we're still on the air real quick. So I Googled Buffalo Bills trade. This link to this came up on their Bills Twitter page. We've agreed to a trade for Amari Cooper, posted via the Buffalo Bills Twitter page. Buffalo is going to receive Amari Cooper, a 2025 6th-round pick. The Browns receive a 3rd in this 25 and a 7th in 26. I mean, Amari Cooper, for the Browns, I guess they're just like, fuck it. We're not going anywhere. We're wasting Amari Cooper's time. Let's send him to a team where he actually has a chance of doing something. Buffalo is 4-2. They need a receiver. So the trade, all right, that trade makes sense. I get it. Send Amari Cooper to a team where he might actually have a chance of doing something and give Buffalo a weapon. It's not the same as Stephon Diggs. It's not the same Amari Cooper that showed promise with the Raiders early, but Amari Cooper's still a respectable veteran, and he could give that offense a little bit of a spark. So I mean, it's at least a credible veteran for Josh Allen to throw the ball to, but I don't think it's a real needle mover for them. It's like, I get it. They got themselves a weapon, but I mean, it's something. I'll leave it at that. And there's my thoughts right there on that trade. And it's interesting now because we're at that point now where NFL trade deadline, we actually get multiple big trades. We got Devontae Adams earlier to the Jets. Now Amari Cooper to the Bills. That'll give me something to drop a YouTube short on when we go off the air. So in that regard, I think it's nice that I got something to talk about, and we got something to talk about when we're live on the air. But the trade itself, I mean, it's something for Buffalo, but it's not a real needle mover that can help bolster this offense. It's not like Marshawn Lynch to the Seahawks back in the 2010 season where they acquired him from, ironically, the Buffalo Bills. So yeah, it's a move, but it's not like a real game-changing in-season trade. But we'll see as time goes along how Amari Cooper affects the Bills. But that's my thoughts there on the Amari Cooper trade. At this point, it really seems like I said everything I was going to say. We talked about the Eagles game. I've let you guys know. A reminder, though, if you guys didn't catch it the first time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday, October 16th, a.k.a. tomorrow. I'll be live in a Hardcore Sports Network exclusive Week 7 NFL Pick'ems. We'll be a roundtable discussion, giving our weekly picks. I don't have the full lineup yet, but I'll be on it. It'll be a fun time, getting to sit back and chat, talk about football, maybe have a few laughs. It'll be a fun time. Then 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the NBA fans. It'll be episode 93 of the Pick and Roll podcast. If you guys want to catch that, if you're a basketball fan, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. Okay, yep, Derrick Henry has been good for the Ravens. Yep, absolutely. He's living up to the hype now. Once Baltimore got to week 3 and they realized, hey, we got ourselves Derrick Henry, let's utilize him. They haven't looked back, and it's been good for Baltimore since. And Derrick Henry, hey, he's just putting himself up a good case for the Hall of Fame that he's going to another team and still doing his thing. So it's been good for both parties in that regard. But yeah, I think we said everything we were going to say. Before I go, as always, I thank everyone for their support. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights, John Grega, all the others that always stop by on my streams and engage in the chat. You guys make this thing more fun. You guys make this thing more engaging, because without you guys, it wouldn't be as fun and wouldn't be able to keep these streams rolling. So thank you for your support as always. I appreciate it. And I look forward to interacting with you guys in more of the upcoming streams, whether that be tomorrow's streams, be it the Week 7 Pick'ems exclusively on the Hardcore Sports Network, episode 93 of the Pick and Roll podcast at 5, or the Friday Eagles versus Giants Week 7 preview. The recaps coming up for Week 7, Week 8, so on and so forth. Look forward to the upcoming streams, and as always, I appreciate your support. And I wish you guys have a wonderful night, or if you're catching this on the replay Wednesday or Thursday in the middle of the day, have a great day. And until next time, it's your boy Nicky Stees signing off. Enjoy the rest of your night or day. And peace. Fly, Eagles, fly. Catch you next time.